Lesson 7, Easy Grammar, Nouns and Genders. Okay, if you are like I was, you might be completely grammar ignorant. When I went to high school, the government of the day decided that grammar wasn't an important thing to teach, and I left high school literally not really knowing what an adjective and a noun was. That bad. So when I first came to Poland, people were saying, well, if you want to learn Polish, start with the nouns. And, I had to go off onto Google and do a quick search, what's a noun? And I felt this kind of like, oh my God, I've got to learn the whole English language of grammar, what grammar is, and try and learn the Polish language. And it all felt very overwhelming. So what I'm doing in this course is I'm going to ease you into grammar if you are like I was, and I know that there are many people out there who are, just because of the very poor English education system. Right, so now if you know your grammar, if you studied English grammar specifically, then the start of this lesson and the next lesson might feel a little bit slow to you. Please don't think I'm talking down to you. I'm talking to the me of 20 years ago to ease in that grammar and why we need it in a foreign language, why we need to get our heads round that kind of language of grammar. So let's start with the very basics with nouns. So a noun is a label we give to something so that you and I know what we're talking about. So for example, say supermarket. So there we've got what you think of and what I think of when we say that word. Not going to be exactly the same image, but it is going to be an image of a large store that mainly sells food. Now, it's much easier for me to say, are you going to the supermarket, than to say, are you going to that large store which mainly sells food? So this is the purpose of nouns. So here's a list, for example. We've got pizza, wine, food, and as I just said there, supermarket. They're all things. Now, all nouns have genders in the Polish language, and also in many of the other European languages. French, Spanish, I think in German as well, it's also true. We have masculine, feminine and neuter. These are the genders of the nouns. And so whichever noun it is could be either masculine or feminine or neuter. And if you dabbled in some high school French, you might remember that first you learn the French word for cat, and then you have to learn what the gender of that word is, so you know whether to say le or la or things like that. Okay, there's very good news in Polish that there's a solid system for identifying whether a noun is masculine, feminine or neuter. So it shouldn't be too much of a struggle. Just to make a small point, we have a kind of leftover of this noun gender in English sometimes, and that's in the use of she. We often apply the use of she to boats, say yachts, sometimes cars, that sort of thing. She runs really well, or she's a real beauty. And there's no particular reason why we would call a boat a she, but we do. It's that kind of leftover trace in the English language. And so it's imagining that idea of she or he or it is applied to actually every single noun, not just boats and cars. Okay, let's get some new vocabulary, and we'll use that vocab to teach us about genders for nouns. So let's try this. It's pizza.
To jest pizza. To jest pizza.
It's wine.
To jest wino. To jest wino.
It's food.
To jest jedzenie. To jest jedzenie.
It's a supermarket.
To jest supermarket. To jest supermarket.
Now, hopefully, most of the words there are pretty easy to learn. Pizza is pizza. Just watch out in that pizza that it is a double Z because it's brought straight in from the Spanish or the Italian. I did say Polish don't do double Zs, but when they bring a word in, they do, and they will actually pronounce both Zs separately. So listen out for that when you hear the word pizza.
Pizza. Pizza.
Vino, probably you recognise that again from the Italian. We often say in English, I need some vino. Food, that's the only tricky one really in that list. That's one that there's no kind of mental hook, but we're going to use that an awful lot, so you will remember it very quickly, very soon. And supermarket, exactly the same in its written form in Polish, but obviously you heard there that it was pronounced slightly differently. Okay, now we're looking at the endings of these, the letters that are underlined. And we've got there at the top, we've got pizza ends in A. Now, any noun which ends in A is feminine. Then we've got vino, it ends in O, and we've got jedzenia, which ends in E. Okay, so any noun which ends in O or E is neuter. So A is feminine, O or E is neuter. And everything else, which includes our supermarket there, because it doesn't end A, O, E, that is feminine. That is masculine. That is masculine. Now, that's all very well, but how can we kind of remember those rules a little bit better than just trying to remember A, E, O all the time? Okay, the first way I've got that should help to do this is if you know any Polish girls or Polish women, then just think of their name. Because in 99% of cases, their name will end in an A. So, for example, here's some names: Beata, Magda, Agata, Dorota. All these names end in A. They're all female names, and so it's just a bit of a jogger that that's feminine. It's A, it's feminine. The second way to try and remember this is to make a piece of paper with a few drawings on it. So here's my piece of paper, and I've drawn on it a woman, and I've written the Polish for woman next to it. Let's hear how that's said properly.
Kobieta. Kobieta.
Okay, so the Polish word for woman ends in A, and that's another mental hook. If we can remember the Polish word for woman, then we know that it ends in A, and that's our connection that it's feminine. Okay, now next I've drawn an egg, so let's just hear the Polish word for egg.
Jajko. Jajko.
Okay, the pronunciation there kind of as we expect it. We've come across a J, A, K, O, we've come across all of those, so we could have thought out how to get to that. Okay, now again, an egg. Is it male or feminine? Well, we don't know, it hasn't hatched yet. Could be a male chick, could be a female chick. So they can remember the word yaiko, can remember it's an egg. We don't know what's inside, we don't know if it's feminine or masculine, so it's neuter. And then we've got food, and so I've drawn some various items of food, the best that I can. And so food, again, food can be lots of different things. So food could be apples, oranges, it could be pizza, could be. It could be a stew or a pudding. Lots of different things, lots of different nouns, and so because we don't know, it's so general, we don't know if it's masculine or feminine, the food that we're actually talking about. And so we've got that E ending word. Let's just hear it again.
Jedzenie.
So it's an E ending word, so we can remember that anything which ends in E, any noun which ends in E, is neuter. Now, why on earth do we need to know all of that? Well, because what happens with the noun, the gender of the noun, affects the whole sentence. And we're going to see this in the next lesson, where we're going to see how the gender starts to affect words before it and after it, but only in a small way. Now, so what I suggest you do always is like keeping that piece of paper with those drawings on, pull it out every now and again, because if you can memorize the fact that we've got kobieta, that's A, that's feminine, vino, sorry, not vino, have a jajko, egg, what's in the egg, we don't know, neuter, jedzenie, lots of different types of food, we don't know what types of food, so also neuter, and then everything else is masculine. Okay, then that will be the great hook for instantly knowing when you come across a noun, whether it's masculine or feminine. Okay, let's sum up. So we said nouns are labels which we give to objects. So pizza, coffee, egg, we also talked about supermarket there. Every noun has a gender, which is either masculine, feminine or neuter. We know that nouns ending in A, like kobieta, are feminine. Nouns ending in O or E, like vino or jedzenie, these are neuter. And everything else is masculine. Remember that logic behind kobieta, vino, jedzenie. Keep that piece of paper and keep looking at it, just to keep yourself familiar. And then we can see in the next lesson how we'll start applying that knowledge to the sentences.